Patricia, nutritionist from Low Fat, Low Carb, and
Alex.
And today we're going to give you a brief overview on intermittent fasting, something that we touched a little bit about on our last video, and we're just going to go a little bit more in depth today. First of all, we want to start by letting you know that at Low Fat, Low Carb, we support you no matter where you are on your journey. So we want to talk about intermittent fasting as a tool that you can use depending on whether you're trying to lose weight or maybe reduce some of your medications or if you have insulin resistance. We're definitely not prescribing this to be the solution for everyone. We want to do, as always, what's best for you. What is intermittent fasting?
Okay, so intermittent fasting, now I've got some experience in intermittent fasting, but basically it is where you choose a window of time to eat and a window of time to fast. Most of the time you'll find that the fasting window is much larger than the eating window, so most people go for kind of a 16-8 split, or they'll go for a 15-9 split, that kind of thing. Most people are fasting naturally when they sleep. Hopefully you're not getting up sleepwalking, going to the fridge. If you're not, then you are fasting while you sleep, so most people are doing it naturally anyway. All you're doing when you intermittent fast is you're extending that window of time.
Yeah, so when Alex says a 16-9, it means that, or 16-8, it would mean that you're not eating for 16 hours and then eating for 8 hours. There are different types of fasts that you can do. There's something called a dry fast, which means nothing. You're not eating or drinking during your fasting period. Generally, it's not something that we would recommend. We would recommend that you do something more like a wet fast, which is where you're taking in water. And from Alex's experience, he says a lot of water. You want to talk about that?
Yes, so one of the main points to keep in mind when you do intermittent fasting is that dehydration is a factor because you do get water from food. So naturally, if you're limiting the amount you eat during the day, your level of water intake is actually going to decrease. Okay, so like I said, well, like Patricia mentioned, water is an important factor when you fast. Make sure you are drinking through your eating window, through your fasting window. Yeah.
And also when you're fasting, your body is going to be producing more uric acid, which is hard on the kidneys. So you want to make sure that you're drinking a lot of water to help flush that out. The other thing when you're fasting is that you're not intaking any nutrients. So you want to make sure that when you are eating in that window, that you're eating very nutrient-dense foods. This isn't a recipe for don't eat and then eat whatever you want for 5 hours. We really want to encourage you and support you to eat foods that are going to fuel your body and feed your body in a way that's healthy so that when you are going through your fast, you don't get into nutrient deficiencies. Let's talk about some of the pros, not the cons, the pros of intermittent fasting.
Okay, so I want to start off, I have some points here just because I want to make sure I don't miss any of the key points. So one of the most obvious ones, at least to me it was obvious, was the simplicity and efficiency that it gives you. So when you choose to do intermittent fasting on a daily basis, so like the 16-8 split, what's going to happen is you're going to have a window of time where you're not eating, which means you don't have to stop to eat. And a lot of people don't think about how much time that will add to your schedule. So everything becomes so much more efficient. The other thing is traveling is so much easier, whether you're catching planes, trains, taxis. Like, it's so much easier when you don't have to stop and think, oh, where am I going to eat today? Oh, where am I going to stop and have a healthy meal? You don't have to worry about any of that if you're doing intermittent fasting. You just have to make sure you get your timing right for the fasting window.
I think I'm just going to interject because I think that's a great point, because I know my boyfriend would love to not have to eat. He's not a foodie in any way. So that's something that, again, if that fits into your lifestyle and your preferences, you're like, you know what, I don't really care about eating. I want to make sure that my body is fueled, but I don't need to sit down to something gourmet. Then maybe this kind of style of eating works really well for you because you don't have to think and plan as much around your eating window. It's a shorter window.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Okay. So a second point now, You're going to have to go a little bit more in depth with the research in order to get the details on this, but it does help with removing waste from your cells. Okay, on a cellular level, intermittent fasting is a positive thing. Now, when your cells remove the waste, it helps with cellular repair, which is why it is such a positive thing.
Yeah.
The next point, just to
Can
move.
I interject again?
She's in again.
I'm gonna do it again because this is important. When your body goes into this fasting state, it actually starts to scavenge for food within you, and the first thing that goes is deficient. I don't know what I'm saying. Defective cells. So the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to go through your body, and any cell that doesn't seem to want to belong there, like cancer cells, for example, it's going to start actually eating those and breaking them down and getting rid of them. It's really great for reducing inflammation. So that's another benefit.
That is another benefit. Oxidative stress will decrease with intermittent fasting. And one of the major points I want to bring up, and this is actually one of the main benefits as to why I started intermittent fasting 11, 12 years ago now. So human growth hormone secretion actually goes up 2 to 5 times the average when you're during your fasting state.
Do you want to explain what that is for people?
So HGH is human growth hormone, and this is something that helps with fat burning, it helps with muscle gain, it helps with your overall health.
Keeping you looking young.
There you go. Keeping you looking young.
Yeah.
So it is. It's kind of important to note that some of these hormonal changes in the body are more prevalent. The benefits are more prevalent in males than in females. That's something I just want to kind of put out there because there is a difference between male and female chemical balances in the body. So naturally, there will be differences in the benefits.
Men respond a lot more quickly to lifestyle changes than women. We'll just have to say it that way.
Okay, yes. That's the best way to say it.
Insulin resistance. So let's just quickly talk about insulin on a very, very basic level. So when you eat, your insulin levels will spike, telling your body to store energy. When you're in a fasting phase, what happens is your insulin levels actually drop, which is great. This is something that we want because then your body will start to look for ways to release energy. When you're insulin resistant, this means that your insulin levels are always high. So your body is always storing energy, which is why you might be feeling very sluggish and lazy and lack of energy. When you get into a fasting phase, your insulin levels drop. And so now your body is releasing energy, which can give you more physical energy as well as burning more fuel, burning more fat. Fasting is one of the easiest and most quick way of getting into nutritional ketosis, which some of you might have already heard of, often called the ketogenic diet. When you're in ketosis, your body is burning fat instead of glucose and glycogen for fuel. And if you're overweight, which 2/3 of the American population are, your body has a lot of fat cells that it can burn down to make fuel and have energy. And you might have felt energy as well when you tried your intermittent fasting. You talked a lot about cognitive energy, but did you find you had more physical energy as well?
So physical energy, it took a couple of weeks for me to get into for the physical aspect. I actually found a big energy drop for the first week. Second week, it started to level out a little bit. And by the third week, there was a markable improvement. It was, I think I ended up putting a good 5 to 10% more weight on the bars. I ended up putting a lot more effort into my sprints. There was a big change in my physical ability and strength. Now, a lot of that could have been down to the cognitive aspect of it. It could be that I was just simply feeling it more, in which case I was going to put a little bit more passion, a little bit more energy into it. But yeah, I definitely felt a huge improvement after that 2 to 3 week period. But it did take a little bit of time to get into it.
Okay. Actually, an interesting thing to note, and I know we've talked about this, again, we do a lot of this kind of debate off camera when we're in the office, which is why we love to do them together on camera. intermittent fasting and with caloric restriction triggers the same mechanisms as physical exercise. So if you're someone that is inactive and you want to start getting the same benefits as exercise, I mean, we're big believers in movement, moving your body, because exercise not only supports and protects your frame, your physical frame, and gives you more mobility long term, but if you haven't moved your body in years and it's difficult for you, intermittent fasting can trigger the same benefits. Negative. Have you come across any negative points that you'd like to talk about?
So other than the points at the beginning that were more like caveats before you get started with something like intermittent fasting, the two major points is the energy, obviously, aspect. You got to make sure, obviously, if you have to be very cognitively aware and alert at all times, intermittent fasting might not be the thing for you if it's going to interrupt your work schedule or anything like that. The only reason I say that is a lot of people will create a coffee dependency or a caffeine dependency, which is something I actually had trouble with when I got back into intermittent fasting after I took a small break. And I actually found I was drinking far more coffee than I should, and in which case, when it came time to feel that big rush of energy on that second to third week, I didn't actually feel it because the coffee had already kind of taken me there, and now I felt that without the caffeine, without the coffee, I felt very low on energy, I felt very fatigued, and this is something you have to keep in mind, that if you want to feel the real benefits, don't become dependent on coffee or caffeine from any source. Keep the, if you do have coffee, black coffee in the morning is fine, nothing else in it, don't put calories in there, otherwise you'll break the fast. And like I said, just try not to have multiple coffees each day, because it will leave you dependent on the caffeine for energy instead of letting your body do it naturally.
So that's an important thing. I talked very quickly about the different types of fasts. Some people, when they're doing a wet fast, will also have non-caloric drinks like coffee or green tea or herbal teas. So it's okay to have those, but as Alex was saying, and we all know that caffeine, more than a cup or two a day, can be more of a detriment because it creates stress on the body. It really stimulates the adrenal glands, and most of us have enough stress in our life, and we have adrenal fatigue generally anyway. So we don't want to add more stress to our body. We're doing intermittent fasting to try and heal. There's also something called a fat fast, where when you are fasting, because your body is in that state of burning fat as energy, you intake fat. So it gives you a little bit of energy, it gives you some calories, so you're not feeling too deficient, we'll say, which is where bulletproof coffee came in. So I'm sure you guys have heard of bulletproof coffee. Some people really swear by it during their fast, so they'll add butter and MCT oil or coconut oil to their morning coffee to give them that sustained energy and a little bit more fuel to help them get through their fast. Again, we're just going to say try it. If it works for you, great. If you're not getting the results that you want by adding fat to your coffee, then maybe just don't do it, right? It's always do what works best for you.
Yeah, it's always a game of trial and error. Anything when it comes to nutrition, you got to find out what is going to work for your body, right? Your body is unique. Your physiology is different from anyone else's. So you got to make sure you find the correct way to do things for you.
And you have to remember that depending on what your current eating style is, it's possible that when you start fasting, you'll feel almost flu-like symptoms. So if you're eating a diet that has a lot of processed foods that isn't really supporting your body, you're going to go into almost like a detox. And you might have heard of that phrase or that type of eating before, where you're trying to cleanse your body, and at the beginning you're not feeling too great. If you're eating, making sure that you're eating very nutrient-dense foods, when you go into your fast and you're going to that detoxification, the symptoms will probably be a lot less than if you're having a lot of processed foods.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Is intermittent fasting for everyone? Alex?
It's not going to be for everyone. There are a lot of people out there, like I said, the differences between male and female is something you got to think about. You will have to kind of draw on your own experience, your schedule, your lifestyle. Is it going to be for the busybody that needs to kind of pack in or cram in a bunch of food in a small amount of time? That sounds like the perfect candidate. But now you've got to think about on a physiological level, where you stand, hormonally where you stand, how old are you? If you're a young kid, if you're watching this, if you happen to be like 11 or 12 years old, you're probably not going to want to start fasting.
Yeah.
However, if you are middle-aged and you're pretty sedentary at work, this may be something that you need to do. It's all going to be dependent on lifestyle predominantly.
Yeah, so Alex is talking about lifestyle. I will mention that if you're pregnant or nursing, that's not a good time to start intermittent fasting. You need a lot of nutrients to be feeding your baby or building your baby, so it's not a great time to introduce intermittent fasting. You're not going to be pregnant or nursing forever, so just take the time now to eat very great foods and then try intermittent fasting after. Children, not recommended to do intermittent fasting. And I know it might be something that some parents are considering, because unfortunately kids nowadays do tend to be overweight. Still not recommended for kids to do intermittent fasting. They need the nutrients to build strong bodies. So there's different ways that they can work at losing some weight, like removing refined carbs, removing sugary drinks, desserts, portion control, without having to go into intermittent fasting. If you're taking medication, always talk to your doctor first about any kind of lifestyle or diet change that you want to make. Some medications do require that you eat them with food, so you want to be careful around that. If you're planning on doing an intermittent fast, you want to time it so that it still works with the medications that you're taking. And there's so many different ways to fast. We talked about 16 hours a day versus 9 hours a day. Some people will fast one full day every week, or one full day every other day, or I've had clients that fast 2 to 3 days, and they just fast until they feel like eating again, and then when they eat very healthy for about a period of 2 or 3 days, and then they start again. So really, ultimately, it's whatever works best for your body and lifestyle, with the other things that we mentioned, pregnancy, nursing, medication, or children. I think we've covered it.
I think we covered everything we planned on talking about today.
Yeah.
You can go a lot more in depth. There's a lot more information out there. And if you have any questions, Patricia's always around. Use the forums, use the Inspired Nourishment question section.
Okay, so when you go to lowfatlowcarb.com, you can become a free member by clicking the green button at the top right corner of the homepage to ask questions in our forum, which is the place where you can speak directly to me and also get wonderful feedback from the community. You can always send us your questions at lowfatlowcarb.com, where we'll take that wonderful question and put it into our Inspired Nourishment series, which comes out every Thursday. We hope this has been of value to you. Please share with your network, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, take care, guys. Have an awesome week.